Hi, I'm Dr. Robin Koslowitz, YouTube's post-traumatic parenting expert. Have you ever said to yourself, I want to break the cycle. I want to parent differently than the way I was parented, but I don't know how. I want to give my kids a healthier childhood than the one I had. Or perhaps recent events in your life, high pandemic, have left you feeling depleted and you don't want to allow your traumas to traumatize your children. Welcome. You've come to the right place. Please, before we start, hit subscribe below so you never miss another episode. Today, we are talking about dealing with passive aggressive and narcissistic relatives as a cycle breaking post-traumatic parent. How to deal with whether it's a relative, whether it's a person from our past who is toxic, who is communicating in a passive aggressive way towards us, and that really makes it hard to be around them, especially with our history of trauma. So if you like these kind of topics, hit subscribe because we will be talking about this, and we have a lot of very useful techniques for how to deal with this. So the first thing to know with passive aggressive people is their style of communication is, I am going to be aggressive. I am going to say those mean things that attack you, that lower your self-esteem, that make you feel toxic levels of shame and self-doubt. But I'm going to do that by pretending to be nice. Rosalind Wiseman really explained this well in her book about that the movie Mean Girls was based on, where she talks about relational aggression, which is very often how females bully, although males can definitely do this as well, where you can be as mean as you want as long as you pretend to be nice. Kindness, of course, doesn't enter into the picture. Our job when we are dealing with that passive aggressive person is to remove the mask of niceness. Now, in order to do that, we have to be willing to tolerate a certain amount of discomfort. We have to be willing to respond in a way we've never responded before, because we're not going to put up with it anymore. A lot of times people ask me, why is it after the holidays, like I've made so much progress in my post-traumatic parenting journey. I've gotten so much better. I'm a whole different person. I'm empowered now. I have all these skills. And then I go home for the holidays and it's like I'm an awkward 11-year-old again. And the reason for that is the way our brain handles and encodes certain memories. To a certain extent, when you go home again, you are an awkward 11-year-old again, because awkward 11-year-old neurology in your brain, where that inner child of yours resides, gets activated when you're around the people that installed the awkward 11-year-old persona in the first place. So when you're in a large family gathering, it's not surprising that no matter how empowered you've become in your own life, no matter how many cycles you've broken, no matter how far you've come and how much trauma you've processed, suddenly those old patterns start reasserting themselves. Our brains can't encode all of our personality and all of their functions within our head. It's too big. A human personality is much larger. So what happens is our brain encodes some of our personality in other people. So when you're around that uncle that always made you feel like just a piece of garbage, those cousins that always mean girled you, that aunt who just made you feel like such a loser and so embarrassing and awkward, those parts of your personality are triggered because that part of you is literally not encoded within yourself, it's encoded in them. And when you're with them, that part of you wakes up. So that's why you feel that way. That's why your inner awkward 11-year-old comes out at family gatherings. That being said, once we understand passive aggressive people, people who use relational aggression well, we can disarm them. The first thing we want to do is take away the mask of niceness. And we do that by genuinely getting curious. Now, in order to do these techniques, I'm going to ask you to do one thing, one favor. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing that in the moment, this interaction is going to feel unnatural, uncomfortable, threatening, scary. It's going to feel all those ways, but discomfort is not danger. You're going to feel uncomfortable, but you're empowered now. You're an adult now. You've handled some of your trauma. You're on this cycle breaking journey. You want to model something different for your children. It's going to feel uncomfortable. We don't judge the success of an encounter about how it feels in terms of discomfort. We judge the success of the encounter if at the end of it, you responded the way you planned to respond. If you did that, it was successful. If you didn't, we're going to try again next time. At least you thought about it. And next time you'll get a little closer to actually doing it. Thinking about it is a good step. Coming up with that comeback 5 minutes after the person walks away and you feel like, oh, I should have said this or that. Next time, you'll think of it sooner because this time you thought of it 5 minutes. After next time, it will be 3 minutes, and then it'll be 1 minute, and then it will be during the encounter. That's why I like to give post-traumatic parents some handy-dandy phrases to use. Check out my earlier video below, which is about my over, under, around, and through technique for dealing with nosy questions at a family party or at a social event, because it's those kinds of handy-dandy over, under, around, and through type of techniques that you can pull out in a moment of stress because you've practiced them. Now what I want you to do is genuinely get curious. Can we get curious about the passive-aggressive people in our life? Can we think to ourselves, or the narcissistic people in our lives, what is making you so passive-aggressive? Why can't you just say something hurtful straight out? What do you think you're doing? Like, why are you acting this way? Why are you so intimidated by your much younger niece that you need to say something to undermine her self-confidence, right? What is it in you that makes you need to do this? So a little bit we're pulling back the veil. Think of the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. We're opening the curtain. What is it in you? How weak do you feel inside that you need to intimidate someone who's so much less powerful in the family than you? Why did you need to make me feel so low and intimidated when I was a small child and you were an adult? I'm genuinely curious. What is that in you? So when that passive-aggressive person comes over, you have a few very useful phrases. One of them would be, why do you ask? So they say to you, like, why'd you wear that sweater? Why do you let your children eat sugar? Oh, why aren't you married yet? Whatever it is. Why do you ask? Right? The idea would be, I'm genuinely curious. If the person is asking because of nefarious intentions to make you feel bad, that sets them very off balance. The other slightly similar technique is, what did you mean by that? Oh, interesting choice of sweater. What did you mean by that? Now they have two choices in that moment. A relationally aggressive person, a mean girl who is pretending to be nice, has to backtrack because she doesn't want to lose her mask of niceness. So she's going to say, oh, I meant the choice of colors is just like, only you could pull that off. Now she really meant an insult, but now she had to give a compliment because otherwise her mask of niceness would go off. The other option, so if she retains her mask of niceness, you just won that encounter because she walked it back. If she loses her mask of niceness and she says, I think that color is hideous on you, no problem. Now you forced her aggression out into the open. She lost her mask. That is very unnerving for the truly passive-aggressive person because they don't want their aggression. In their mind, they're hiding their aggression. And very often when you'll ask a passive-aggressive person, why are you like that? They'll tell you they're being nice or they're being feminine. And perhaps they were raised in an era when that was considered particularly nice and feminine. It was considered the way women communicate. Okay, so now if you really don't like my sweater and you really think it's useful for me to know that, here's how I would prefer to be given that feedback. In general, I like to teach a feedback formula of when you do X, I feel Y, it leads to Z, right? So if you need to give me feedback on my sweater, not sure why, when you wear casual clothes to the affair that I said is going to be black tie, I feel disrespected. It makes it hard for me to then greet you with warmth, I guess. I can't imagine caring that much what someone else is wearing to my party. But if that was the intent of that communication, like, why are you dressed so casually when this is a formal affair? That would be the way to give that feedback honestly. Like, I'm uncomfortable that you're wearing jeans and t-shirt to my black tie wedding. Okay, there's a way to say that. There's a way to request that everybody, wear the color scheme or some other nonsense that's important to that passive aggressive person. But the idea is just give me the feedback honestly. Now, whenever I teach this in a workshop, I have at least one post-traumatic parent who will come up and say to me, are you crazy? If I do that, I will start a fight. Oh, here's the thing. You're already in a fight with that person and she is winning. This is how passive aggressive people fight. This is how relationally aggressive people fight. And they count on you being confused by that mask of niceness so that you don't know how to retaliate and respond. They want you to feel like you're fighting back tears. They want you to feel little. They want you to feel smaller than them or self-conscious. That's how they fight. And right now you're losing. So if you actually, so to speak, turn it into a fight by saying, why do you ask? Suddenly what happens is now they're going to get mad at you, but now their aggression is honest. Sometimes we have to teach people how to have a good fight, how to have a productive disagreement about something. Adam Grant says the best fights are not you versus me. The best fights are you and me versus the problem. If you honestly have a problem with something I do, I want to hear about it with natural, healthy, honest feedback. If you really have a problem with something, if you really have an issue or a concern about something, tell me honestly, straight to my face. Just say it, right? I don't want you to wear jeans and a t-shirt to my black tie wedding. Okay, we can communicate about that. We can have an honest, productive dialogue about that. We're going to have different opinions about things sometimes. Actually, that's how a relationship gets stronger. So if one sister-in-law feels like, let's say there's a family holiday party and one sister is doing the bulk of the work and her other sister isn't, but she's being passive aggressive. So she'll just comment like, oh, looks like you're enjoying relaxing over there. So glad you have no stress right now. Why not say straight out, this was supposed to be a family collaborative effort. It feels like I'm doing all the work. Do you mind clearing those tables, please? Right? Like just straightforward, and not even do you mind, that's even softening it with the veneer of politeness. So I'm going to need you to clear those tables since this was supposed to be a collaborative effort between the two of us. So much more productive for the sister-in-law. So we have two sisters-in-law who are making a family party and they're supposed to be working together. So much more productive to say, I'm going to delegate. You do this, I do that. I don't need to be the martyr of the family. I don't need to, in a passive aggressive way, point out how I'm doing all of the work. I can simply say straight out, feels like I'm doing a lot of the work, so I'm going to need to delegate the next few jobs. Who would like to clear the tables? Who would like to set up the drinks? Who would like to set the table? Who would like to bring in things from the cart? Whatever it is. That kind of honest communication ultimately strengthens a relationship because that's how then the other sister can say, oh my gosh, you're right. I was totally focused on something else and I wasn't paying attention to the fact that this is a shared job. You are 100% right. I will immediately go out to the car and bring in all the stuff. How do I make it up to you? Honest people, that's how they communicate. That's how they have a conflict. The relationship gets stronger. So if I say, I feel like I'm doing all the work right now, and my friend says, you're right, you are. I am going to step up to the plate right now. I have such warm feelings towards her. She has such warm feelings towards me. There's no resentment. Rather than me dropping passive aggressive comments and then she doesn't necessarily know what she did wrong. She wasn't paying attention. So now I keep dropping these comments. And then when she says, what do you mean? And I say, oh, nothing. My feet are killing me. I'm working so hard. Do I mean you are making me work too hard and I want you to step in? Am I simply saying my new shoes are really pretty, but also torture chambers for my feet? What am I trying to say here? Say what you mean. A lot of us from difficult family backgrounds, a lot of post-traumatic parents, we're not great at that. We're not great at simply stating our needs. A lot of us are people pleasers, and it's very easy for a people pleaser to start becoming passive aggressive because there's no other place to let it out. When you're a people pleaser, you're so afraid of letting people down, of social judgment, of people, saying something negative to you or about you, that the only place for your aggression becomes passive aggression because you do have to say, hey, I'm doing all the work. But you can't say it straight out because you're a people pleaser. So now you need to say those passive aggressive statements. Practice enough people pleasing turning into passive aggression becomes, oh, these are my social skills. This is how I interact. This is the most feminine way to interact. I'm not saying that this is gendered. Guys can people please too, and guys can engage in relational aggression too. You absolutely see that. However, I'm saying that there is a certain generation of women who really do think this is how one is feminine and this is how you communicate. So when you meet one of those people, and very often what tends to happen is many post-traumatic parents are, the reason we are traumatized is by nature we are very honest, authentic people. We are the child in the story of the emperor has no clothes. We're the truth tellers. We're the one who says, but he's not wearing any clothes, right? Very often, Carol Gilligan will say it's not an accident that the fool in the Victorian tales was the one who told the truth, and teenage girls are very often fools. So in a lot of toxic family dynamics, it's very often the teenage daughter who's the one who says the truth, while all the other kids are just like happily going along with the passive aggressive communication, the narcissism, whatever else is going on in the family. It's that teenage girl who just says no. Like, that wasn't nice, even if you pretended it was nice. And it's usually foolish in the moment because people judge you and you have to be the black sheep, and that's painful and that hurts. But it's also a superpower. That ability to be honest and authentic and know your truth and know your values, that's what makes you a cycle breaker. That's what makes us post-traumatic parents determined to give our children a different experience of childhood. For a lot of post-traumatic parents, putting up with like that passive-aggressive relative who is constantly fat shaming, weight shaming, judging, commenting on parenting skills, very often it's when that passive-aggressive person goes to the children and starts talking to the child that way, that the cycle breaker has that moment of clarity and courage to say no. So I've spoken to so many post-traumatic parents where, I always call it the great Aunt Bertha character who says, oh, why are you wearing your pink sweater, honey? With your figure type, the blue sweater is so much more flattering, hides a multitude of sins. You know what I mean, right? Which is passive aggressive. If you're telling me I'm fat, just say I'm fat, right? So that great Aunt Bertha is making those statements. And as the cycle breaker, I'm maybe hearing them, upset about them, but don't quite have the courage to say something. Then great Aunt Bertha says to the cycle breaker's oldest child, oh, honey, are you sure you want to eat that cookie? A moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. I hope I'm not triggering anybody. And all of a sudden, you have the strength, because you know what a lifetime of hearing those comments did to you, to say to great Aunt Bertha, we don't talk to children about their food choices that way, right? I appreciate your concern for my daughter. If you have a concern about her nutrition, you can come talk to me. We don't fat shame children. We don't do that, right? And you absolutely set that limit, set that boundary. What gave you the courage for yourself? You didn't quite have the courage, but that inexhaustible supply of love you have for your child allows you to have the courage to say that and finally set that boundary, finally grab that power to say, no, you don't get to do this, right? And then after that, renegotiate your relationship with your family of origin, because there are certain statements, certain comments, certain roles, certain ways of interacting that I'm not putting up with anymore. And we're going to do things differently right now, not for my own sake, but for the sake of my children. And in so doing, your inner child starts to heal, because your inner child sees you doing it for your real life child. And your inner child wishes that someone in your own life had done it for you, but no one did. But now your inner child sees you do it for your child, and that little wound starts to heal. So if you have a passive aggressive person in your life, remember, their goal is to hide behind the mask of nice. Don't let them hide behind the mask of nice. Asking those curious questions. What do you mean by that? Why do you ask? Right? And because I'm genuinely curious. I really do want to know what you mean by that. This is not a tactic. I'm genuinely curious. Very often can disarm that mask and it drops. Now, either the person is going to backpedal, which means you win, or the person is going to not backpedal, but drop the mask of niceness. And then you know for sure, oh, she really, all those years when I wasn't sure, I wanted to cry when she said something to me, but she said it so nicely and she sounded so sweet. Why did I want to cry? Am I too sensitive? right? Which is the other comment you get a lot. Can't you take a joke? No, I'm not too sensitive because now that she dropped the mask of niceness, I know this for sure. She dropped the mask. Now I know. Yeah, we got into a fight, perhaps, but we were always in a fight. Just now the fight is on my battleground because I fight openly and honestly. I am going to have honest communication. I'm going to flesh out a problem until we solve it. That's okay. That's how I fight. I have productive conflicts. So yeah, we're in a fight, but we've been in a fight for a very long time and I've been losing. Now we're in a fight and now we're fighting on more even ground. If you're a post-traumatic parent and you like this video, please click subscribe below. Please also check out the post-traumatic parenting community. You can find us on Instagram at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology. You can also find the post-traumatic parenting podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. And stay tuned for the upcoming post-traumatic parenting book. Till next time.